Welcome back to another episode of Underrated. I'm Lefty.
This is Bo. Welcome back.
Hey, Bo, how are you today?
I'm doing good. The show continues. It's we're back again, right?
Absolutely.
Let's get this rolling.
Yeah, we're missing the wonderful Field of Dream games for this.
I saw that come on earlier, and listen, they were talking about Joey Votto's story. He lost his father many years ago. Listen, my father passed away almost 2 decades ago. Well, we watched this movie together. I have no feelings on this. That's going to sound very crude. The one cool thing, though, I wanted to see Ken Griffey Jr. out there, and all that made me feel like was I was really old, because he is now. So
yeah. Definitely a lot of people, I think, have a hard time, verbalizing their feelings without tying it to some kind of largely meaningless media.
Yeah.
Just go tell your dad you love him.
Like everybody, yeah.
Instead of talking about really really bad movie.
Yeah, I was watching a little bit of the intro. There's just nothing there, man. Like, hey,
yeah,
I get it. Like, playing catch with your dad is something that's important. Some of our best times, but I just don't feel any sentiment towards that. But hey, MLS All-Star festivities took place in Minnesota at Alliance Field this past week, and interesting skills competition taken by the MLS All-Stars to kick it off, and then a win against the Liga MX All-Stars in the exhibition game. This is the second time that Liga MX and the MLS have been pitted against each other, and it led to a really feisty exhibition game, if you caught any of it, Yeah. So it seems like the relationship between these two leagues continues to grow closer, stronger, but last night you could see that rivalry between Mexico and the U.S. men's national team kind of carrying some real weight there, and I think that's exactly the intensity all-star games need, because for me and probably you too, Lefty, they're usually among the most boring events out there.
Absolutely. And this is a nice kind of international flair that they need. We don't really have that in North America the way that they do in Europe. There's no UEFA Cup here. There's no Super League. There's just this All-Star game. Well, and I guess there are some preseason tournaments that teams have tried to incorporate. I forget what that cup is called, but it's increased in weight recently. But I'm a big fan of this. I don't love All-Star games. I'm a bigger fan of the skills competition.
Sure.
I think that's a great addition. I'd love to see some other sports implement that. And it's a shame that the NFL kind of has backed away from that. That used to be one of the more fun things.
Oh, yeah. I would have to say that the Pro Bowl is probably the worst out of all the major sports. But, for the MLS, even more exciting news. I don't know if you heard about this, Lefty, but if anybody out there listening is bored with traditional formatting, next summer they're completely reinventing this, like World Cup style. So the Leagues Cup will see both MLS and Liga MX pause domestic play for a month, so all of their 47 combined clubs can take part in a month-long group stage and knockout tournament. Lefty, I just want to say I think this is huge for the MLS. The Sounders became the CONCACAF champions back in May. They were the first MLS club in 22 years to do that. So, Mexico wants to come back and show that they firmly believe they are the home to the better clubs, and they're looking to prove that in front of all the MLS fans everywhere.
Yeah, no, it's a great format. It's a great tournament. My biggest issue still is that, MLS, at least I'm not all that familiar with, the Mexican League, but in MLS, they don't really acknowledge the FIFA calendar.
True.
And if they're not going to allow, the best players in the league to represent their national team in a way that doesn't also hurt the domestic club, they'll never be taken seriously on the world level.
Well said. Well said. In other news, Aaron Judge is hitting the crap out of the ball, if no one's been paying attention.
Yeah. The big news yesterday is that he broke Roger Maris's record for most home runs for a Yankee, correct?
Yeah, I don't know how many home runs this guy is going to hit this year, but that was obviously the club record. So currently, Judge is on pace to break that 61 home run mark. So of course, Roger Maris's son and the Maris family, have comments, right? So Kevin Maris, Roger Maris's son, earlier this week stated that he obviously doesn't want to see his father's record broken at the end of the year, but he's happy that it would be a Yankee, and he will absolutely tip his hat to Judge. So that led to the next question. Hasn't this record been broken already? According to the Maris family, they don't care what the MLB recognizes. They said they will consider this the first time the record has been broken.
I too would love to live under a rock and just deny history.
Right.
I feel like my life would be a lot easier if I lived that way.
Yeah, just put up those blinders. Just live in that, and not even bubble. Just block it out.
Yeah, if you don't like it, it didn't happen.
Right. Exactly. As it stands, McGuire and Bond still hold those MLB records officially. So we'll see how Aaron Judge ends his season. But the New York Yankees as a whole are on an absolute tear right now. So
yeah, well, they've actually kind of fallen off as of late.
Yeah,
they've struggled a bit. They're not even the best team in New York anymore.
Yeah, it's got to be the Joey Gallo trade.
Yeah,
he hit a home run in LA last night, so everybody knows
he's carrying that team. To be honest.
Definitely. So let's dive into today's episode.
Absolutely.
Lefty.
Yeah.
Who do you want to discuss today?
Well, this past week marked the last career regular season home game. One of the most prolific players in basketball history. Drafted first overall by the Seattle Storm in 2002, Sue Bird has become arguably the most recognizable player in WNBA history and maybe women's basketball history over her 2-decade career. Did you catch any of that final home game?
I did. Obviously it was an emotional game. She received obviously the ovation that she deserved. Impressively, like you just stated, 41 years old. This is a long, extended, successful career. This is going back, I'm sure you're going to touch on this, but this has including her college career, the Olympics, different things like that, which I'll let you talk more about. But outstanding. What an icon.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming off her senior season, saw her win her second NCAA championship on top of the Naismith Award, the USBWA Women's National Player of the Year, and the AP Player of the Year. Everybody knew Sue Bird was destined to be the next WNBA star.
Yes.
Her rookie season saw her average 14.4 points per game, 6 assists per game, and she led her way to the first of 4 consecutive all WNBA first teams.
Mm-hmm.
While that year she also captured a gold with Team USA in the FIBA World Championship. 2 years later, 2004, Bird would help the Storm win their first WNBA championship, and that same year, Bird would capture her first Olympic gold medal while competing in basketball in Athens. Bird would go on to win an additional 4 Olympic gold medals in basketball, becoming one of only 2 players of either gender to ever win 5 Olympic gold medals in basketball.
Incredible. That's just incredible.
Yeah, and over the next decade and a half with Seattle, Bird would win an additional 3 WNBA championships, tying the record for most WNBA championships in a career. Aside from those 4 WNBA championships, Bird also spent over a decade playing double duty in the Russian Premier League, capturing 5 titles in the Russian National League, 5 FIBA EuroLeague championships, as well as 2 European Super Cup titles.
Incredible.
Absolutely. And just a few weeks back, Bird was named to the WNBA All-Star roster, extending her record to 13 All-Star appearances, the most all-time in the WNBA. And just to contextualize that, Bird has competed in half of all WNBA All-Star games held.
Yeah. I mean, not only does that give you an idea of the longevity of her career. It just touches upon the talent, right, and how she's been viewed by her peers.
Yeah. Playing over 20 seasons is just an incredible feat of longevity in any sport, really. But at a professional level in a sport that's continue to grow, huge feat.
Sure.
So when she retires, coming up, she'll have played in more games, more seasons, and played more minutes than any other player in WNBA history. She'll also finish first all-time in assists, second in three-pointers made, fourth all-time in steals, and seventh in total points.
Unheard of.
Overall, Sue Bird is one of the most accomplished players in women's basketball history on accolades alone. As a relatively quiet point guard that has seen the sport and the league and the game change immensely in 2 decades, she's remained one of the faces of the sport for 20 years. And kind of much like we've talked about with players like Marvin Harrison last month, quiet production doesn't always get the most notoriety, but it's fair to say that among fans of the WNBA, Bird is super well acknowledged and respected. Even if, much like Miguel Cabrera and Albert Pujols this season, her latest All-Star Game selection was a little questionable.
Yeah, of course.
And aside from those accolades, I find one of the more impressive things about the career of Sue Bird to be the way that she's weathered being a part of a league that is notoriously undercovered, underfunded, and kind of really dismissed by a lot of NBA fans. That perseverance has largely paid off for Bird in the league. Today, more eyes than ever are watching the WNBA. Viewership in just the last 2 years is up 40%. More fans are going to games than ever before. And more fans are genuinely excited about the league. Bird stepping away from the league at 41 years old at a time in which the league is stronger than it's ever been before. And, I think that's in part due to the decades of service that Bird and players like her put in.
Yes.
So, deservedly, she'll be remembered as one of the greatest WNBA players of all time, scoring nearly 7,000 points, making 1,000 three-point shots, having over 3,200 assists, and, 4 WNBA championships.
Yes.
13 All-Star appearances, and 8 All-League team selections. Just an insane amount of accomplishment there. And again, recognition among the league and the fans, but I posit that doesn't extend that far beyond the WNBA. So that said, do you think Sue Bird's underrated?
Yes, I do. And, let's start with Seattle, right? Seattle hasn't had an NBA franchise for a very long time. When the Supersonics, moved to Oklahoma City and became the Thunder, they were left without an NBA franchise, right? Sue Bird became the best basketball player in the city, right? Immediately. I think what's more important is that if you look at her resume, which is incredible and cannot be denied, she's tied for the most gold medals won by a basketball player, man or woman. She's obviously, we see that she's helped lead Team USA to 5 gold medals in the Olympics. We've seen her carry the American flag at an opening ceremony. We've watched her just really dominate in the league over, 2 decades. And I think that, like you said, Lefty, the WNBA has been on the back burner. But now, because of people like Sue Bird, there's more coverage, there's more visibility. People understand the talent levels. Now we have, athletes like, the whole, obviously you see the support that Griner's getting with her situation that she's dealing with in Russia. There is visibility on these great women athletes, and there should have been this entire time. I think Sue Bird is absolutely underrated. because of the state that the NBA has been in. But what I will say is that 10, 15 years from now, I feel like the WNBA is going to be in a very, very different place. And she paved this path. She is an icon, and she will go down as such. But I don't think people really appreciate what she has done to this point as much as they should. So, yes, yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. She is coming off being named the 2021 USA Women's Player of the Year, which is a huge feat in basketball. And I think that as a player, her play style is probably pretty close to done in the league as we know it today. Sure. I think that she held the torch of what the WNBA was and what it could be. And now she's passing it off at a time in which the style of play is changing and the league is growing. And, she helped, pave that foundation for what the league is today. And I think that accomplishment is something that will likely be what she's remembered for most. Obviously, the accolades are numerous. The championships across continents are numerous. But I think the way in which the league moves forward as a legitimate sport in the eyes of many fans is something that she'll ultimately be remembered for, helping carry that torch, until it could stand on its own.
Sure, and she's been a member of the WNBA Players Association Executive Committee, and she helped negotiate a groundbreaking collective bargaining agreement for the league in 2020, and that increased player compensation. It improved travel accommodations, and it guaranteed maternity leave to athletes in the league. And again, like you've stated and like I have as well, it's not just the accolades. It's, again, your commitment and your duty and what you've given back, to the sport. And Sue Bird has gone above and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, we're coming off a story about, players being forced to fly, commercial airlines and getting stuck in the airport overnight, and all of these stories about just how little respect the WNBA actually gets.
Sure.
And obviously it's gotten a lot better, large part due to the contributions of people like Sue Bird. And there's still a long way to go. And like I said, I think she helped pave the foundation to move the league forward. And I think within the near future, in the next 5-10 years, I think the WNBA will be a league with lots more coverage, lots more viewership, and one that's taken a lot more seriously. At least that's what we can hope for.
Definitely. Well, congratulations to Sue Bird on an outstanding career. We'll see you in Springfield, Mass. And I'm sure the fight's not over. So, great pick, Lefty. 100%. We agree that Sue Bird is underappreciated and underrated.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And we are back. Thanks for sticking with us. We just talked a bit about Sue Bird. Bo, is there anybody you wanted to talk about this week?
Yeah. Let's stay on the topic of basketball, why don't we? Let's just hop on over to the NBA. My athlete today, this is probably going to ruffle some feathers out there, but I'm going to make a pretty big statement. Today's player could be considered the most underrated NBA player in the 21st century, right? He's a one-time NBA champion, a 4-time All-Star, NBA All-Rookie, second team. That's over nearly 20 years in the profession. So we're going to discuss the great Rasheed Wallace today.
Nice.
So, yeah, Rasheed, a Philly native. I mean, he was a high school star. He was named USA Today's High School Player of the Year, first team All-America by Basketball Times. He was a 2-time Parade All-American first teamer. He wasn't even playing 20 minutes a game his senior season, but still averaged 16 points, 15 rebounds, 7 blocks. Crazy numbers, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
In that time, he was also squeezing in baseball and track, and he high jumped as well. So
wow,
he was a renaissance man in high school, we'll say. He was also a top 3 recruit in the nation. He was successfully recruited by the UNC Tar Heels and Coach Dean Smith, and he only spent 2 years at UNC, but they were in the spotlight. He played alongside future NBA star Jerry Stackhouse, and he helped the Tar Heels make it to the Final Four in 1995. He made the ACC All-Freshman team, first team All-ACC, and second team All-American before he entered the 95 NBA draft. So, taken 4th overall by the Washington Bullets, he appeared in 65 games his rookie season. He was named to the NBA All-Rookie First Team, and he fractured his left thumb and missed the rest of the season. Didn't see him again. Yeah, so shockingly enough, number 4 pick in the draft, rookie season, that was the end of his career with the Bullets. They traded him in the offseason to the Portland Trail Blazers. So here's his opportunity where he will finally gain notoriety, and he'll spend the next 8 seasons. So in his first year with the Blazers, he ranked 3rd in the league in field goal percentage, but just again, as he's picking up steam, he again broke that left thumb. So he missed another month, but comes back in time, first round of the playoffs, where he performed strong, but the Blazers were eliminated. You know, next season, though, is where they finally see quintessential Sheed. He sets an NBA record with 38 technical fouls.
Oh, classic Roscoe.
The following year, he breaks that record with 40. So he was also suspended for 7 games for threatening a ref on an arena loading dock after a home game in 2003. So at that time, that was the league's longest suspension unrelated to violence or substance abuse. This was a huge thing. But, there were other good times. He was an NBA All-Star in 2000 and 2001. He led Portland to the Western Conference Finals back-to-back, 99 and 2000. They both lost to the eventual NBA Finals champs. In 2002, he again led the team to the NBA playoffs. He was averaging 25.3 points, 12.3 rebounds per game. They eventually got eliminated. So, I mean, right then and there, you're looking at an eventful first, 9 seasons in the NBA.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, 2004, he's traded to the Atlanta Hawks. He played 1 game. And they turned around and immediately traded him to the Pistons. So this is where it gets interesting, right? Because he really achieved stardom here in Detroit. So the Pistons are already in the midst of domination in the league. They added Wallace, and he helps them get to the 2004 NBA Finals. There, his first half season with the Detroit Pistons, they beat the heavily favored LA Lakers. No one expected this. That Detroit Pistons playoff run was so completely out of left field. No one expected that team to do what they did. It was unbelievable, really. It was a classic underdog story. The bettors in Vegas were going crazy. There was just no question that LA was going to dominate, but that wasn't the case. So Rasheed gets his 5-year, $57 million contract to stay in Detroit because of that NBA Finals championship. So, he's a comical guy. One of my favorite Rasheed moments is after that NBA Finals championship, he had WWE replica belts made for each of his teammates. So the following season, you could see him wearing it. His teammates were wearing him, carrying him around. He thought that would be a little inspiration for their title defense the following season. So that next season, they're right back in the NBA Finals. Now, This time they did eventually lose to the San Antonio Spurs, but getting to the championship, back-to-back years is no easy feat, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So over the next few seasons, Wallace saw 2 more All-Star selections, multiple playoff appearances, including the Eastern Conference Finals, which they appeared in 5 consecutive times with Wallace in the lineup. But after being eliminated by the Celtics, this marked the end of the Rasheed era in Detroit. He was traded to those same Celtics, and from there, Detroit continued to dismantle, the teams that had taken him to the finals. His first season in Boston, he was again back in the NBA Finals, which they sadly lost. But Wallace retired after the season, then came out of retirement 2 years later in 2012 to play for the Knicks before retiring again. So, okay, outside of basketball, people often forget that Rasheed Wallace has been heavily involved within the community for years and still continues to be to this day. The Rasheed A. Wallace Foundation was established in 1997. That was specifically to promote programs that enhance the quality of life for all people, and it assists in the recreational and educational development of youth within communities. Portland, Detroit, in North Carolina are specifically the hubs for this foundation, and they played a huge role in keeping kids off the street, helping them get involved with programs, not even sports related, just to improve their quality of life and their futures. During the Flint water crisis, Rasheed Wallace was immediately present. He personally was delivering bottled water door to door for days just to residents, and even wrote a letter in the Players Tribune to raise awareness on the issue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So now, Rasheed Wallace, not in the Hall of Fame. All right. So here's what I want to throw at you. 2 metrics. Win shares, which if you're not familiar, that's an estimate of the number of wins contributed by a player, and PER. So that's player efficiency rating. That's based on per minute production. And to give you an idea, the league average is 15 in the NBA. Okay, so keep that in mind. Let's compare Rasheed to 2 other center/power forwards, just like him, that are in the Hall of Fame. Alonzo Mourning, the great. The Zoe was, obviously legendary. His win shares at the end of his career was at 89.7. His PER was at 21.2. Okay. Rasheed, win shares 105.1, PER 17. Okay. Now, there was about a 250 game difference between the two, but Alonzo only won 1 NBA Finals championship. He was a 2-time NBA All-Star. He was a Defensive Player of the Year, a 7-time All-Star. Sorry, but if you look at the stats, very, very close, right? If you average those out based on games played and win shares and PER, if you take those numbers specifically, those are very close. Take a guy like Yao Ming. Win shares, end of career, 65.9, PER 23. Okay, I mean, he averaged 19 points per game, and played, not even barely a third of what Rasheed did. Also a Hall of Famer. So, I don't want to get too nerdy on you guys, but Lefty, are you familiar with RAPM, regularized adjusted plus minus?
Not all that familiar. Give me a breakdown.
Okay. So this is a metric that's gained a lot of steam over the years in the NBA and in the NHL. So obviously, if you know anything about statistics, you know the issues with the standardized plus minus stat, right? I mean,
yeah.
You're a bench guy, you're subbing in against junk lineups at the end of the games. Of course, your plus minus is going to be high. The plus minus doesn't account for competition or other players on the team. So what RAPM does is it adds a filter. It pulls the junk data out of those metrics, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What I'm getting at here is that there was an article published a few years back by a scientist, and RAPM correlated with MVP voting very closely in the NBA historically, that it required some attention. To wrap this up, only a handful of players who finished in the top 25 in RAPM didn't receive correlating MVP votes over the years. Rasheed Wallace, though, only received MVP votes 2 different times in his career, yet finished in the top 25 8 different times. 8 different times over his career. Only received MVP voting 2 different times.
It's the disrespect there.
Those RAPM numbers, not only did he finish in the top 25, 3 times he finished in the top 5 in the NBA over that span. I mean, when you're up there with names like Kobe Bryant and you're competing at that level, according to statistically when you're on the floor, who your competition is, and what value you're bringing to your team, that's unmistakable, right? So it's a really cool lesser known metric to dive into. But, with that being said, do you think Rasheed Wallace is underrated, or am I just out of my mind?
Yeah, I think that he's definitely an underrated player. I think he was overshadowed in a lot of places he played. Even Detroit, where he had so much success. He wasn't even the most popular or well-acknowledged Wallace on the team.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's tough, man.
Yeah, and as it comes down to, something we've talked about time and again is, when you don't have the world's most exciting skill set, you excel at things that are often unnoticed to the casual fan, or even unnoticed, to more seasoned fans who are, distracted by the shell game of the high flying dunks and the large number of 3-point shots.
Yeah.
His skill set was great. He was a great player, but he never got around to the double doubles every night numbers. Wasn't the best rebounder in the entire world. Was proficient but not phenomenal. Wasn't the highest scorer in the world. Right. Definitely played long enough to see those numbers dwindle quite a bit. And also, shifted roles throughout his career. Being pushed from center to power forward and back again. The responsibilities there are very different, and it can cause things to get lost in the shuffle. And I think more importantly, he also kind of played during a time in which the role of the power forward shifted in the NBA.
Correct.
And he was a little. Obviously, he did shoot some threes, had some long-range shooting, but it wasn't anywhere near what it is today and what it became while he was playing.
Right.
And I think that caused some issues throughout his career. As he got older, he got shifted into that center role because the power forward that he grew up playing and that he came into the league playing kind of died as a position. Right. So, yeah, definitely underrated.
Yeah, there wasn't much that he couldn't do on the court, but he did limit his game quite a bit. And with the one critique that, commentators and, just people who have looked back at his career have said is that he wasn't selfish enough on the court. Many, many opportunities he could have taken, and he was almost a little too conservative. Which was really the only area of his life on and off the court where you could say he was a conservative person. I mean, he was a true team player and almost a little too team friendly that it did hurt his statistics. I mean, if you go back and look at it.
Yeah, he was more. He wasn't even in it for the assist.
Right.
It was setting up the plays. It was being more meticulous in the decision making. And I think that really, really hurt him a little bit in terms of, the counting stats.
Definitely. And, like I said, there isn't a ton of awards. Obviously, if you were watching in 2004 and 05 and 06, and obviously you see how consistent and how great of a player he is at that time. You take notice, obviously, but diving deeper into these metrics paints a little bit of a different picture. And as we've talked about over and over on different players that we've covered, these conversations are about value, right? What kind of value you're bringing at the time. And I think for Rasheed Wallace, especially when we're talking about these teams like the Trailblazers and the Pistons, the amount of value and the role that he was playing was highly appreciated.
Yeah, and he also existed kind of in that overlap of the appreciation of these more meaningful metrics.
You couldn't agree more.
Just like in baseball, there was an era of players that were kind of forgotten by the proliferation of more advanced statistics, the wins above replacement, and just like that, this RAPM, and even Raptor, I believe, is pretty similar. I believe is that a 538 exclusive stat?
Yeah.
But these more meaningful value added stats are kind of just coming of age in the NBA. Something that's more meaningful now than even just a couple of years ago.
Sure.
I'd hate to see what fans are going to do when they look back at the efficiency and value added of someone like Kobe Bryant versus some other stars at the time.
Oh my gosh! Well, in this same report, there was also there's a list of overrated athletes over the years, and the list, there's some big names there. There's some big names there, and again, it kind of showcases what was happening in the sport at that time, and it also kind of tells the tale that you were just talking about and touching on. The stats have changed. The evolution of metrics has changed. The way you look at data has changed. The positions have changed. It's just a totally different game when you look at it behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of underrated athletes like Rasheed Wallace kind of exist on the periphery, whether it be on the border between eras, whether that be the statistical border that we're seeing now between value added stats and counting stats, or the border between eras. And Wallace kind of straddled that era in two different ways. His value wasn't as acknowledged as it should have been, and he also played during a time in which the game changed significantly, and he suffered a bit because of that. So I would say definitely underrated.
Awesome. Rasheed Wallace, great career. Just paying our respects here. Absolutely agree.
Yeah, absolutely and I think that maybe one day he will. It'll be his career will be revisited, and maybe the due diligence will be done, and he will maybe be celebrated at a higher level.
Well, fingers crossed, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a busy time in the sports world. Lots of fun stuff coming up. We talked about how today is the Field of Dreams game that nobody's watching because it's a out of touch old movie about how great segregated baseball is and two really shitty teams.
Yeah.
But aside from that, we talked the other day about the first week of the Premier League season, English soccer. After we recorded, we both saw Erling Haaland come into the league and do exactly what was expected of him. Are you excited for week 2?
I am very excited about week 2. I think there's some great matchups coming up, and a couple surprises in week 1. But week 1 is just your teaser trailer, right?
Yeah.
Week 2, things change so quickly, and so many of these players have those early jitters. We're just getting in the flow. A lot of movement, a lot of new signings, a lot of new additions, a lot of new strategies. So I really think that week 2 is going to be super exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited and hopeful that Manchester United will continue to just be shit.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, hey.
And that's not even just because they're playing Brentford, but I think that universally people love to watch the high spending favorites lose.
Yeah.
I mean,
Are there
other than their fans?
Right. There's obviously players. I don't know if you saw obviously West Ham signed Ivory Coast international Maxwell Cornet. I'm excited to see this 25-year-old play. I've heard some good things about him. Watched a little bit of video. He comes over from Burley, so we'll see how. I think he's got a high ceiling. I think this might be a little exciting. There is just someone I'm going to keep an eye on there in the background.
Yeah. There are lots of. It's been a busy week. I think a lot of teams were able to finalize deals that they had in the works, but they also got to see where they needed to apply that extra pressure to bring those names in.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Lots of things. Excited personally about the Brentford signing Mikkel Dars. Sorry, I'm bad with my Danish names.
Yeah.
So Damsgaard.
So how do you think this is going to play out for Brentford?
I think that Mikkel Damsgaard, to get his name correct now, is he played a lot of winger in Italy. He was also hurt quite a bit. I think they're going to shift into that central midfield role, and I think he's going to be the progressive passer they need. He's obviously not a one-for-one replacement of Christian Eriksen, but sure. He'll definitely help develop offensive plays and should lead to some more goals. He's also been pretty proficient in winning the ball back. So I think he could be the facilitator of a lot of counterattacks.
Yeah, well, we'll be keeping an eye out. That's a great matchup and exciting. I want Brentford to make it interesting. Staying on the topic of football, I don't know if you've seen these, but anybody out there listening is probably aware of the Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney purchase of the Wrexham AFC team. There's a FX series that's I don't know if it's out or it's coming out. I just familiarized myself with this a few weeks back after coming across a little teaser trailer. What have you followed any of this? What are your thoughts?
It looks like they're gonna do well. They played well last season. They're currently, I believe they're coming off a win in their first game of the year. I could be wrong. Maybe they played more than one game, but they could be a team that actually gets promoted. And I think that sometimes that celebrity factor in the lower levels that are so tight. And just to mention here, because I know we have a majority of U.S. listeners.
Sure.
In English football, there are many different levels of competition, and the top few teams from each league get promoted to the next highest level of competition every year, and the worst few get relegated to the lower levels. So we're talking about this team, Wrexham, being promoted to a higher level of competition.
Sure. Are they League 2 right now? Is that where they're at? I believe that's where they're at right now.
Are they? I don't think they're that high yet. I think they're further down.
Man,
it looks like they're So they're in the National League, which is the 5th tier.
Gotcha. Okay.
So when you get this low, a lot of teams don't have a lot of money to spend on players.
Sure.
So the boost that comes from just the added kit sales, the influx of money from celebrities, can be a turning point. So this could be really fruitful for them.
It was purchased by an LLC directly owned by the two of them. There was an interesting scene that I caught where they're walking into, they're being shown the gym, the team's gym, and it looks like something in a really crappy hotel. And it's pretty pathetic. So definitely, I'm gonna check it out. I think I think it'll be fun to see what this Canadian and American are doing over in Wales for this team, and how it is going to change the fan base and help the city. So looking forward to that, man.
And it's serious, but not that serious.
Right? It can't be.
I mean, obviously, there's real money on the line. And then they want them to succeed. But, it's also FX and, comedy actors.
Definitely.
And, it's kind of interesting in terms of American media. The second kind of big soccer, English soccer related program that's been picked up in the last couple of years. What's the name of the other one that everyone who apparently is much older than me is watching?
It's it's on Netflix. I just passed it up just yesterday. It's because it's related to, because I'm a few years back. I'm watching the Sunderland or Die. A series. So that's what I'm currently watching right now, and I'm on season 1, and this is from obviously a few years ago, and it's related, but I know exactly which one you're talking about. I just don't know the name.
Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso, yes.
Yeah. So
yes.
Again, that's not in my realm. I think that I've no offense to my mother if she's listening, but I was turned off from watching it when she recommended it to me.
I still haven't seen it. It's what, Jason Sudeikis.
Yeah. So again, that's the second large show.
Sure.
With soccer in American media, which is a step forward. And before we pivot away from soccer, I do want to mention that right now, it's also, I believe, one of the first days of the Under-20 Women's World Cup.
It is, yeah.
Happening in Japan.
Yeah, so it may be currently on right now. Actually, it's the FIFA Under-20.
Yeah. There's some odd times, halfway around the world. A little more difficult for us here, but yeah, there's a game starting here shortly in Canada. I know it's
definitely.
U.S. won today against
the
Ghana Under-20 team. But yeah, there's a lot of future talent in a game that's growing quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
After the women's Euro Championship, there were several teams that sold out of their season tickets for the next year almost immediately. One team, I believe, sold as many tickets in the 2 days following the Euros in the women's league in Europe, or in England, just the standard domestic league, sold as many tickets in 2 days as they did in the entirety of last season.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so it's just a massively growing sport with a massively growing fan base. And these players that we're seeing in the Under-20 World Cup are the future of that sport.
Yeah. I think now at this point, I'm just meeting many more people who are recognizing whether it's the MLS or it is the English Premier League. I mean, that's just the United States, and I'm sure everywhere else, it's much more. There's a lot more coverage, but it's really great, and I'm really excited about being able to get up and have access to all this. So I'm glad times have changed. Turning over to American football, the NFL preseason starts this weekend. So I used to never typically pay attention, but if you want to get a firsthand look at draft picks, or like we were just talking about, young talent in general, it's a good time,
Yeah, I mean, the first game, is that happening right now?
Yeah. It's for a lot of people, it's just nice to have football back. But Lefty, do you think you'll be watching more NFL coverage this year? I mean, do you have a team you're keeping an eye on that you'd like to have as your team, or what do you think?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
I don't particularly enjoy the NFL. More power to you if you do. Not a sport that I love all that much. Definitely still watch probably too much college football, but as a former high school football player who suffered a pretty debilitating concussion, it's some shit that nobody should play.
Yeah, it's if you're watching any of what's on right now, there's obviously HBO has Hard Knocks, but also all the coverage now. In preseason and in training, the NFL players are wearing these specialized padded, cushions over their heads. I mean, it looks insane, but it's the first time in history that they're actually trying to acknowledge, without fully acknowledging, that this is an issue. I mean, what's so scary about CTE is that you don't know until it's come and gone and you're gone. That's the toughest part.
Yeah, and it's a thing that is probably far more common than we're aware of. And these measures could have been taken a long time ago. Those extra those extra little like beanie caps, they've been around for a decade at least.
Sure.
And they've been helpful for that long. And to just implement them now is just an absurdly late reaction.
Right.
One that you would anticipate from maybe a government responding to a pandemic or something like that.
Yeah, some crazy. But it's typical of it's NFL's no different than any other big corporation refusing to admit that they're wrong and that there is an issue, and next thing you know, your back's against the wall and it's right in your face, and you're having to address it. And to take a minuscule little half step forward is okay. Like, we're not going to pat them on the back, but it's even shocking that they've actually taken this step. Like, I would have never thought they would do that, especially someone like Roger Goodell, who is, this man is atrocious. So,
yeah. And there are lots of, I don't want to get too lefty woke on you, but there are lots of problematic things about all sports, but particularly the NFL and their exploitation of specific types of people. But,
absolutely,
conversation for another day.
Definitely. And what you're touching on is more and more often starting to come to fruition, and it's in the limelight, and it's being put out there, and it's usually because of the freaking Cleveland Browns. So, anyways.
Yeah, and that wasn't even the direction I was going in, but yeah, again.
Sure.
There's a lot going on there, and I'll just keep watching some soccer, some baseball.
Definitely. It's always it's an exciting time, right? Fall's coming up, and for a lot of sports fans, you've got the playoff baseball. You've got Premier League in full flux. You've got the NBA season starting in October. You have NFL football starting. You have all these different things happening. Sometimes it's very overwhelming for the sports fan. It's like, what the hell am I gonna? I can't. Like, most people aren't just allowed to sit on their couches and just do this without interacting with others. So it's a tough time.
Yeah, you got to really pick and choose what you follow. There's only so much capacity, to follow sports. Obviously, you got to leave some stuff behind if you're trying to follow everything.
Yeah, exactly, man. And I'm in the, it's so difficult. Like, when the MLB season starts, I'm still in NBA mode, right? So it's like, okay, we're making the switch over, but that first beginning of the season is so exciting. You've been waiting for this. It seems like a long time, but yeah, looking forward to it. Hey, another great episode today. I love the Sue Bird conversation. Rasheed Wallace, one of my all-time favorites. I was able to touch on, and that was exciting. So another good one.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. We got through a whole episode in which we discussed the Wallaces of Detroit's yesteryear, and we didn't even mention the Malice at the Palace.
We didn't mention the Malice of the Palace, but hey, maybe we'll touch on that here, another time.
Underrated moment in sports history.
Yeah. No one got hurt, right?
A couple of wallets, maybe.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So,
so you can check us out, give us some comments, feedback, suggestions on Twitter at underratedpod. That's at _rated_pod. And you can check this episode out and every other episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever podcasts can be found.
Definitely. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We will see you back here next time.